nonsense is that? Anyway, I picked up another one of these Donner guitars. Did a video on these a while back, but it was the natural. Just thought I'd show you this one. It's a spruce, I think agathis back on this. It's hard to tell because it's fairly much black, but you can see the spruce grain on this. Well, you probably can't pick it up on the camera, and it led me to do a quick video on these. I show a lot of cheap sub $100, probably £100 is the equivalent in England at the moment, Britain at the moment. I show a lot of them, and I don't want you to think they're all equal. I have had models that I just haven't done videos on that I just didn't think they were good enough to really highlight on my channel. And when you're looking for guitars, you know, and you see all these 78, 63, 58 free shipping non-brand or unknown brand names like this, you start thinking they're all the same. They're not at all. In fact, I hope this channel proves it, that it's not the case at all. Why do I bother with these and not some of the other brands? Well, I would say that 90% of the sub 100 guitars that you get, you know, for $60, $70, $80 free shipping on eBay and even Amazon are usually made of basswood, and then they color the top to look like spruce and the back to look like a darker wood, a harder wood, but it's all basswood. Can a basswood guitar sound fine? Yeah, it can. I've had 2 or 3 basswood guitars that sounded all right. It's still wood. It is not a resonant softwood like a spruce or a cedar or a nice graduated mahogany or even walnut. It is not nearly as good of a wood for using for a top surface. So it tends to sound a bit dull, a bit like a very thick plywood guitar would sound. I say tends to because I've been surprised a couple times in the past. But I've seen lots of guitars that are being sold at the moment, and if you scroll down and you actually look at the specs, if you can find specs, you'll see body constructed of basswood, top basswood. And I find that those guitars usually are inferior to these guitars that have even a spruce ply top. Out of the cheap sub $100 guitars, I think these Donners probably sound the best that I've come across. I had an Afro-Aim that was a spruce ply top that was alright. A couple of weeks ago I did a video on that. I've had Arcadia guitars that are spruce ply tops. I think some of the Glaris are spruce ply tops, particularly the is it the 604 with the rosewood back. I did a video on one of those. But there are a lot of guitars that you find under $100, all kinds of brands, Basswood, Westwood, oh gosh, I can't think of any at the moment, but there are lots of them shown on particularly eBay. Volt is another one that I see a lot. Rogue is another one I see a lot. You know, there are lots of different brands, Santa Rosa, and a lot of these very, very cheap produced guitars that are being sold at those prices. If you look at the specs, you'll see that they are usually all basswood guitars, and a lot of the times it's not choice cut wood either. They paint them or put a heavy lacquer on them to hide some of the poor wood qualities in some of those guitars. So I tend to look for, if I have a choice, something that has a spruce ply or a cedar ply top, or an old mahogany guitar, or occasionally I found a couple of walnut guitars that sound decent, and I'm getting another one that I'll show you soon. But for the back wood, you know, agathis, walnut, mahogany, even if it's painted like this, The back is, you get some tone from the back, particularly an arched back, but the back is mostly structural integrity. It's mostly for the structure of the guitar. This is the same principle in violins and cellos as well. Most of your sound, not all of it, but most of it comes from the top, or it's the top that resonates through the box and pushes the sound out of the sound hole. So your top's really important, and I found that some spruce ply tops actually sound as good as cheap solid wood top guitars. There's no hard fast rule that solid always beats plywood. It doesn't. And this is a good case in point. This Donner here has a spruce ply top, and it actually sounds pretty decent. It's got nice full spectrum of sound. Even with cheap strings on it, you get a nice bass quality that you just don't get with a lot of cheaper guitars. So I pick these up when I can get them for a good price, and if I do a good setup on them, they usually come out and sound really well. They're good beginner or student guitars. When people come over to play them, they look at the headstock and say, I've never heard of that, but when they actually play it, they realize it's a decent playing guitar, especially with my setup. So I just want to make that distinction. If you're like me and you like to try out different brands, different models, surprise yourself, take chances, take risks, look for the spruce plywood tops rather than the all basswood guitars, because in general, for the most part, they're going to sound better, and when you set them up, they're just going to be better guitars. That's not to say I haven't had a basswood guitar that surprised me. I have. I've been surprised a couple of times by all basswood guitars, but a lot of times when you get one, and I only pick them up if I can get them really, really cheap, or if I find them in thrift stores or something like that, I just want to fix them up and for a kid or something. Most of the time when you get a basswood guitar and you play it, you go, yeah, that's basswood. You just sort of recognize the quality right away. And I found that these spruce ply top guitars are the ones that are going to surprise you the most, and often be better guitars than you think they're going to be. So I generate towards these as much as I can. And of course, your well-known brands like your Ibanez's, your Alvarez's, they all make cheaper budget models with plywood or laminate tops. So it's not something that's the province of unknown or unbranded guitars. It's something that all guitar, even Yamaha and really well-known guitar makers, they do make some entry-level laminate top guitars, and some of them sound good. If you get good strings on them, you get them nicely set up, you play them in a bit, sometimes they'll surprise you, in what they can do. And I just thought I'd use this as a case in point, because I've had 2 or 3 of these Donners now, and they always turn out to be reasonable guitars. Not the prettiest. I really don't like that finish on the back at all. I'd rather see wood. But the top is a really nice tight grain, and the ply is not too thick on this. I think it's cross-played as well. It's not too heavy. It's not really thick plywood. It's nicely made. It's got a nice rosewood board. It's fully bound. The neck is good quality. The tuners hold. I can straighten the neck or put a little relief in it, set the action as high as I want, and then get the frets nice and level and smooth. And this plays just as good as any entry-level Alvarez, Ibanez, Yamaha, what have you. So, and I can get this in somebody's hands with a gig bag for a lot less than they pay for one of those guitars. You can't buy a guitar at Guitar Center under $250, $300 these days, and that's for this quality. So, if you're going to look out for guitars to set up and take a gamble on some of these brands, just have a gander at the specs and go for, even if it's laminate, go for a spruce or a cedar top, or even an all mahogany guitar. There are some of them out there. If you're discerning, you can find them. And I just think, 9 times out of 10, they make better guitars than these sort of banged out Basswood guitars that are all over eBay. All right, see you next time.